Ted Cruz gave it a hell no, not just a no. Senator Rand Paul said it was insane. Republicans publicly airing their grievances about critical parts of a new stimulus bill. As congressional correspondent Phil Mattingly explains, the GOP disagreements could turn into a disaster for millions of Americans who are now in jeopardy.
As Congress sprints to pass another massive emergency coronavirus relief bill, the fight isn't Republican versus Democrat.
I asked my Republican colleagues, what in the hell are we doing?
For now, it's Republicans against themselves. A raucous, closed-door Senate Republican lunch on Tuesday laying bare a series of divides between President Trump and the GOP.
There are some differences of opinion on the question of the payroll tax cut and whether that's the best way to go.
And between Senate Republicans and Senate Republicans.
A number of senators at lunch get up and say, well, gosh, we need $20 billion for this, we need $100 billion for this, and they're just really eager to spend money. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell attempting to thread the needle over internal concerns about spending, and the White House push on a series of priorities Republicans simply don't back.
The legislation that I've begun to sketch out is neither another CARES Act to float the entire economy, nor a typical stimulus bill for a nation that's ready to get back to normal. Our country is in a complex middle ground between those two things.
Republicans planning a $1 trillion proposal with $105 billion for schools, but rejecting the idea of explicitly tying all those funds to reopening, a key Trump ask. Another round of stimulus checks to Americans, but wary of Trump's push for a payroll tax cut. A push to increase funds for state grants to increase testing, and new money for the CDC and NIH. Despite the administration's insistence, there is still money available and more isn't necessary. And as millions of Americans face losing $600 in federal unemployment benefits at the end of this month, the biggest unanswered question, how to restructure the program amid GOP opposition. McConnell, however, making clear his conference and the White House will unify.
I'm going to introduce a bill in the next few days that is a starting place, that enjoys fairly significant support among Republican senators, probably not everyone.
For Democratic leaders unified behind their own $3 trillion proposal passed by the House in May, a waiting game.
The time is so important, and the sooner we can see their bill, the sooner we can understand our differences more clearly or our similarities.
And then start negotiating.
And this sharp critique.
One thing is very clear, we have been united in our priorities. I think their delay is their disarray.
Phil Mattingly, CNN, Capitol Hill.
Joining us now, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York. Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The unemployment rate is 11%, and at the end of this month, as you know, the extra money in unemployment insurance that had been provided from previous stimulus bills, that runs out. What is your message to Americans who don't know how they're going to be able to afford food or rent next month?
Well, you're right, Jake. We have a whole bunch of cliffs that we're up against. Unemployment insurance runs out. Tomorrow, rental assistance runs out. Millions, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands could be thrown out of their homes. State and local governments have another deadline on August 1st where they don't have enough money and they're going to lay off tens of thousands of more people. And why did this happen? Just what you said. Because our Republican colleagues are just dithering. They're divided. They don't talk to each other. They spend more time talking about getting rid of statues or not getting rid of statues than about the greatest economic crisis we've had in 75 years, the greatest health crisis in 100 years. They're it's pathetic. McConnell went to the floor today and gave a speech. He talked about the New York Times having a writer leaving them, about the cancel culture, not one mention of COVID when we're in such a great crisis. What they have to do is get their act together. The president, the Senate Republicans got to get together and present us with something. We told Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and Chief of Staff Meadows yesterday, Nancy and I, Speaker Pelosi and I, give us a concrete plan in writing and then we can start negotiating. They haven't been able to do it. You can't negotiate with thin air.
There's a big debate right now about opening schools, and frankly, it's a horrible Hobbesian choice. Remote learning is awful. It causes problems. It forces working people to have to choose between childcare and employment. On the other hand, opening the schools poses serious health risks to students, to teachers, and to spreading throughout the community. What do you tell your constituents about this problem that frankly, their government has not been able to solve.
Yeah, we Democrats have had a solution for weeks, and it's very simple. Everyone wants the schools to open, but only if they open safely. And their schools can do that if they have the resources. I spoke to a school district in upstate New York. They have 4,000 students, 500 faculty. If they need a mask every day, that alone, and that's what the experts say, a new mask every day, that alone is hundreds of thousands of dollars. They have to change their bus routes. They can't have the kids sitting right next to each other, so you have to double the bus routes. A lot of the schools want to change their gymnasiums and cafeterias into classrooms. They can do this all with money and open up safely. But again, we've had a plan. We've asked our Republican colleagues to give us a counter plan. They say nothing. And this is what the frustration is. We are frustrated because there are so many people hurting in such a